And welcome back to Supply Chain Secrets. This week we are talking to Deborah Dull, who is a fountain of knowledge in all things supply chain. And this week we're going to be talking about inventory, coming right up. So hi Deborah, welcome back to Supply Chain Secrets. And you're telling me that one of your passions in supply chain is inventory. So what are some of the key things that people get wrong with inventory?
I love inventory. Thank you for allowing me the
You
space
must
to
be
talk
fun at
about
barbecues. I
inventory.
love inventory. Yeah.
Oh man, but listen, I can usually convert people, so I'll do my best on this one. My hook before I go into the three is really take a look around you, wherever you are listening to this right now. Every single thing you see is inventory. And when you bought something that you can see within your purview, an inventory analyst somewhere in the world totally freaked out because you didn't buy the one that they thought you would buy. You bought another one. And I think the way that we see inventory move through the world, what we classify as inventory, when we're all able to go back and sit at restaurants again, we ourselves are inventory. And then when we talk about turning tables, the tables inventory, I really think inventory turns becomes a fascinating topic. However, three areas that I think we often get wrong or we forget. We knew at some point. The first one is forgetting that we are, in fact, wrong in our forecasts. When we forecast or plan, we're definitely wrong. And we know we are because we'll put a forecast, a confidence level, but somehow still we're surprised. Every review period, we're kind of surprised on, gosh, I kind of forgot that we were going to be wrong. And so planning around the wrongness is something I don't see consistently done across supply chain. So we know we'll be wrong, but we often don't put very many plans in place to counteract all the wrongness that we see. And that gets me a little bit to the second one. We talk a lot about scale. How does this scale? Will this process scale? But typically we only talk about upside on scale. We talk about risk to the supply chain. Of course, you can have upside and you can have downside. And I don't see a lot of supply chains talking about downside risk or scaling down. Of course, these days, supply chains around the world are seeing probably either a sharp uptick, an upside that is shocking and difficult to keep up with, or an absolute turn off of any demand spigot and a real downside. So it's interesting to start challenging the decisions you've made in setting up your supply chain. For example, how flexible is your network? How variable are your variable costs? Have you committed to some sort of a minimum volume that then makes it really difficult for your supply chain to flex, for example? The third one that takes a little bit of boldness is to delay the decision about inventory for as long as possible. And of course, this is best practice. We know this. The longer we can wait to make a decision, the less wrong we'll be about the decision we're going to make. But we often, as planners, we often want to front load the decisions and assumptions as early as we can. But of course, it makes it as tough as possible to react. So we've already made a decision. Let's say you've made 1 million widgets in pink. Turns out consumers really want blue, and you've made the decision and it's done already. So then you have a whole host of other cleanup decisions to make. But I find all of this incredibly fascinating.
Well, we could go for hours on this. I can see that. But Deborah, that's a really great summary, I think, of some of the things that people get wrong with inventory management, and a very different perspective. I've never really thought of us all as inventory, but indeed we are. So maybe there's somewhere that people could go to get more information on this. And I know you have a podcast on topics like this, so maybe we can put that link below.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, the podcast is called The Supply Chain Revolution. And we really are here to connect supply chain professionals who maybe traditionally haven't found each other. So for example, if again, you're looking around the room at the inventory that you're seeing, and at the same time, you're not seeing a lot of supply chain colleagues who act like you do, who think like you do, who look like you do, we're your people. And so the whole idea here is that there's underrepresentation at conferences, on panels, in journals, in leadership positions, that doesn't truly reflect the supply chain industry. For example, there is almost an exact spread, ages 30 to 55, exact spread across supply chain. But typically we really only see, 45 plus featured in these panels, for example, or as speakers or as writers. And so we're really exploring these different topics. We're looking at sustainability, circular economy, sustainable development goals, and what we call new school supply chain. And of course, one of those areas that we look at is in fact inventory.
Yeah. That's interesting. On that age thing, I was running a webinar actually with a friend in Kenya, and I know you have a lot of connections with Kenya and that part of Africa. And one of the guys we featured on the webinar was 19. So
very good.
There are a
very
lot of
good.
fantastic young voices out there in supply chain. So
there really are, and we know that businesses are more successful when you have more diversity, and that can come from age diversity, it can come from gender diversity, it can come from diversity of experiences. And that somehow it's tougher to pull the trigger when it's time to really put that panel together, to really give voice and trust these younger voices. But every time I do, I'm always impressed. And they're always some crowd favorites.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Deborah, thank you very much for joining us again and sharing a little bit of your passion about inventory.
Thank you so much.